Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Super Vanilla Ball Python. It has a lot of potential to make some really impressive combinations working other genes into the Super Vanilla. As a matter of fact, I've been spending a lot of time over on Morphmarket, and it seems like I keep running into these really amazing snakes that have some really visually stunning appearances, and I'm like, what in the world gene is actually making it look so amazing? And come to find out, most of them are actually Super Vanillas. It's a pretty amazing super. So today I want to jump over the internet and now I want to show you the amazing potential of the Super Vanilla Ball Python. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here on Morphmarket.com and I want to start with the vanilla ball python. This is what the vanilla looks like, and this is also what the fire looks like. As a matter of fact, this one happens to be either a fire or a vanilla. It's really close in appearance to the fire, and this actually probably came from a vanilla cream, which is an allelic combination between the fire and the vanilla. So if you actually take a vanilla cream, you breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as fire, half come out as vanilla. And sometimes you can actually tell the difference between the fire and the vanilla depending on what line of fire and vanilla you have, and sometimes they look really close together. As a matter of fact, I actually saw some videos where people are saying you probably shouldn't make vanilla creams because you'll probably confuse the fire and the vanillas when you actually breed it to something else. They are that close. But if you actually make the supers, they are completely different, the fire versus the vanilla. If you take two fires and you breed them together, this is what you get. You get the super fire, which is an all-white snake with black eyes. Kind of an interesting combination between two copies of the fire gene. And kind of the limitation of the super fire is if you work other genes into the super fire, you pretty much end up with an all-white snake with black eyes. You really can't see the other genes in the super fire. And kind of one of the coolest things I like about the super fire is it's an all-white snake, but if you look really close, it has little yellow highlights on top of the snake, which is really awesome. And as a matter of fact, the sulfur is another line of fire that really brings out even more of the yellow in the supers. It's pretty awesome. And if you actually take two vanillas and breed them together, you get a completely different visual effect. Take a look at this. This is the Super Vanilla. Really awesome combination with two copies of the vanilla gene. And essentially what it does is it really kind of gives it kind of this buttery appearance, and it really kind of smooths out all the colors and kind of lightens it. And there's a lot of different versions of Super Vanilla. I've seen some that are a lot more yellow and some of them that are a little bit more browned out. But I would say, you know, if you're actually trying to figure out if you have Super Vanilla in the mix, what you can do is you can look right at the head, and it seems like in every single Super Vanilla combination, you always have this really washed out head. Sometimes it's really bright white. It's kind of an interesting anomaly working Super Vanilla into other combinations. So this is like just the starting point. Let me tell you, when you start working other genes into the Super Vanilla, you can make some really crazy looking snakes. Probably some of the most amazing combos that I've ever seen over here on Morphmarket. So I want to start with the Pastel, working Pastel into the Super Vanilla. And this is what the Pastel looks like. Essentially, it's just a yellow snake. Some of them are really bright yellow. Some of them are kind of a faded out yellow. And usually with the Pastel, you kind of have a jumbled up pattern. And this is kind of an unusual case. You can actually see like some of the Roswell gray alien heads like right here that you usually see like on a normal ball python. In a lot of Pastels, it usually eliminates those. Sometimes the Pastels can be really reduced almost into tiger stripes, kind of really variable. And here's what happens if you work Pastel into the Super Vanilla. Take a look at this snake. This is one of the craziest combinations I've ever seen. Really super defined and really a high contrast between the yellows and the back. And take a look at the head on this one. This is the thing that kind of really threw me off. I was looking through some snakes over here at Morphmarket, and I ran across this one. I was like, what in the world are the genes that make up this one? And it's really actually pretty simple to make. It's just two copies of the vanilla and one copy of the Pastel. It makes for a really interesting combination. As a matter of fact, you can actually work two copies of the Pastel into the same combination, and I pulled up this picture. Take a look at this one. This is pretty amazing. This is the Super Pastel Super Vanilla. So two copies of the Pastel, two copies of the vanilla. If you actually take it, it's like a double super super, which is a little bit more harder to hit. And you know, look at the price on this one. It's pretty amazing that these are only just a few $100s for some really amazing combinations. So here is the butter, and as a matter of fact, I actually ran into a super pastel, super vanilla, the double super with the addition of butter, made for a really amazing combination. And usually when you work butter into combinations, essentially what it does is it really brings out a lot of the yellow in a lot of cases, and a lot of high definition. So you see kind of, you know, like a high definition between the different colors of the snake. And the lesser is also the same thing as the butter. A lot of people think it's the same. A lot of people actually separate the lines between the butter and the lesser. You know, it could be two different lines of the same exact gene. And here's what happens if you work butter into the super vanilla. Take a look at this crazy. This is actually the super pastel, super vanilla butter, and that thing is probably one of the craziest snakes that I've ever seen before. It has these really bright whites as far as a background, almost outlined in black with really high contrast of yellow and black in the combination. Really crazy. And look at the head on this one. That is really crazy. Matter of fact, I was looking at the price on this one. I was kind of blown away that this was only $400 for that really amazing snake. And they kind of left a note under here. It says amazingly bright as adults. So, you know, sometimes some combinations actually fade out a little bit, and some are really super bright as hatchlings and adults. And a lot of people have actually asked me, hey, can you do a video on all the ones that really keep their intensity and the brightness as adults? And let me tell you, it's pretty hard to figure out which combinations actually retain the brightness as adults, because a lot of times all the snakes over here in Morphmarket, most of them are actually hatchling size. So here is the Mystic. The Mystic's kind of an interesting gene. It's actually in the blue-eyed leucistic complex, which, you know, in most cases makes an all-white snake with blue eyes, but the Mystic is kind of the exception. It actually makes a lot of the purple-colored snakes, mixing it with other genes. Like if you mix the Mystic with the Mojave, you get the Mystic Potion, which is kind of a purplish snake. If you actually make the Super Mystic, it's a purplish snake, which is kind of an outlier as far is the blue-eyed leucistic. And the Mystic is probably, I'd say it's probably closest to the Mojave. It's really close to the Mojave, a little bit darker as far as the background, and definitely reacts different than in some combos than the Mojave. And this is what happens if you work Mystic into the super vanilla. Take a look at this. This is pretty amazing how it really brightens it, and it keeps the really high contrast. And you can definitely tell the characteristic of the super vanilla has the washed out head. This is a really amazing snake. Super vanilla Mystic. So here is the Orange Dream. The Orange Dream's a little bit tricky because it can be extremely variable from one line to another. Some of them are really super bright. I'd say this is probably one of the brighter Orange Dreams, and some of them you almost can't tell they're very orange. It can be really variable. And the Orange Dream is, you know, usually the Orange Dream reduces the pattern in combinations, and sometimes you'll actually see like belly tracks, like het pied on the Orange Dream. And here's what happens when you mix Orange Dream into the super vanilla. Take a look at this. It almost acts like pastel with the Orange Dream in there, but it really depends on the line of the Orange Dream. Sometimes you can have like the super Orange Dreams that are really super intense. If you actually bred a couple of these together and made the super, it'd probably be really amazing. And you can definitely see on all these combinations it has a really high contrast between the yellows that are really bright and the really super jet black background. Pretty amazing. And the washed out head. So here is the Puzzle. The Puzzle is a little bit trickier because it's actually a recessive mutation and it's really expensive. If you look at just the puzzles, you know, they can break the bank just getting into puzzles. This is a visual puzzle. This one sold for $2,000. Of course, this was back in 2017, and even the het puzzles are pretty expensive. And here's what happens if you work Puzzle into the super vanilla. Take a look at this beauty. That is a really amazing snake. So this is actually a super on top of a really expensive recessive gene. Makes for one of the most amazing combinations. And a lot of times the Puzzle will actually give you these stripes on the side. Almost looks normal, but when you mix Puzzle in with a lot of combinations, you can make some of the most amazing combinations working Puzzle into other genes. As a matter of fact, this is probably the most expensive snake over here in this presentation here. This is $8,500. This is actually born in 20 2018. Crazy price on this crazy snake. That is really the potential of the Super Vanilla and the puzzle at the same time. Pretty amazing. So here is the Leopard. When it comes to dark morphs, I'd say Leopard is kind of a pseudo dark. If you actually work Leopard into jeans that are already dark, sometimes it'll really make them super jet black. And if you mix it into lighter jeans like the Banana or the Coral Glow, sometimes it won't really darken the snake. But the Leopard, most of the times it'll really jumble up the pattern, give you kind of a crazy pattern. And here's what happens if you work Leopard into the Super Vanilla. Take a look at this. This is really amazing. Really darkens the snake. You can definitely tell it's bringing out a lot of the darks working with the Super Vanilla. And you can definitely see the light head on this. And I kind of went one step further with this. Usually with Leopards, you know, my favorite combination with the Leopard is the Spotnose, the Leopard Spotnose. So take a look at this. I pulled this one up. This is the Leopard Spotnose Super Vanilla. And it also has Pastel in the mix. That is a crazy combination. Probably one of my favorite combinations with the Spotnose and the Leopard. Look at the head on this one. Almost completely washed out. I didn't even look at the price on this one. This one was $600. So not too bad for all these jeans and a really stunning snake. So this is the DJI. When we're talking about dark morphs, the DJI is, I'd consider it a true dark morph. If you actually mix it with almost any other combo, most of the times it'll really darken the background of the snake. It's not like the Leopard where it's kind of, it only works to darken it. With the dark jeans, this will, if you actually work like DJI into like a Banana or a Coral Glow, it'll even darken those. And usually with the DJI, it really jumbles up the pattern even more than a Leopard in some cases. And it's definitely different than the Leopard. Probably one of my favorite DJI combinations is the Mojave DJI. Pretty awesome. And here's what happens when you work DJI into the Super Vanilla. Take a look at this. This is really an amazing result between the Super Vanilla and the DJI. It almost, you can definitely tell the DJI is really darkening the background and giving it almost tiger stripes in this case, which is amazing. And it kind of gives you like this pixelation, which I haven't really seen with any other jeans really to this degree, where you get this black pixelation in the patterns. Makes for a really interesting combination. I wanted to show you one other dark morph right here at the end, and this one, this kind of blow you away. This is actually the Super Black Pastel. Yeah, so you actually take two black pastels and you breed them together. 25% of the time you get a Super Black Pastel, which is a completely black patternless snake. Pretty amazing combination. And I've actually seen some of these Super Black Pastels kind of like a reddish brown color, and sometimes they are super jet black like this one. And probably my favorite Super Black Pastel combo is when you work it in with the pied and you make the panda pieds. Those are really amazing. And here's what happens if you work the Super Black Pastel into the Super Vanilla. Take a look at this. That is really crazy. I actually ran into this snake too, and I was like, wow, that is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I was like trying to figure out how those two work together to make this metallic looking snake, the Super Vanilla and Super Black Pastel. As a matter of fact, I kind of featured this snake when I was doing my metallic snake video. I thought it was a really interesting combo, and then I just kind of stumbled on all these different Super Vanillas. I was just kind of blown away by the Super Vanilla making metallic snakes and all these really impressive other combinations. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And I Just Don't Care Anymore asks, what humidity do you use in your snake tubs? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, when I first started out, I always heard that the humidity level in the reptile room here should be about 60%. When I actually went to these snake tubs, I actually kind of had a problem. I was trying to adjust the humidity in every single tub, and of course it's not really practical, you know, trying to put a meter in there and measure the humidity or any kind of alarms. And at one point I actually went to an all-room humidifier where I tried to humidify the whole room to about 60%. And I had some major problems with my all-room humidifier. The problem is here in the Colorado climate, it is really super dry, like less than 15% humidity. And I was adding like 5 gallons of water to my humidifier every single day. And of course, you know, at the bottom of the humidifier, I'd get these huge cakes of all these minerals from my well water, which wasn't really practical. So I kind of went over to more of a manual method to adjust the humidity in all the tubs. And I don't really use a meter or anything to measure it. I just kind of go by the feel of the substrate. And I actually use a coconut husk chip in these snake tubs. And essentially what I do is I put enough water in the bottom of the chip. So the bottom has a lot of humidity in it, a lot of moisture, but the top is completely dry. So I'll go through every single tub every single day, and I'll just kind of jiggle the substrate just a little bit. And if it kind of fluffs up and it kind of breaks apart, I'll take a little sprinkling can and I'll just water the substrate just a little bit. And if it gets too much water in the tub, you'll actually see the top of the substrate looking like it's wet. So essentially what you want is, if you dig down on the substrate, you want the bottom to look wet, but you want the top to look dry. That is the perfect amount of humidity. And especially when the snake goes into shed, you usually want to bump it up a little bit. Sometimes I'll add a little bit more to keep maybe the top just a little bit wet. Maybe sprinkle a little bit on the snake when they're going blue, and then after they shed, I'll let it dry out a little bit more. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.